where he's like in front of this huge audience, and he's talking about his theory and everything, and the girl like drops a pin, and it just like goes through this sequence. He gets up out of his chair and then just shows his whole life really quickly, and I thought that whole scene was very well done. Kind of showed how everything changed for him.
What was your interpretation as to why that was included? Because later we find out that that was a fantasy sequence. What's your interpretation as to why James Marsh, the director, chose to do that?
The pen?
Yeah, he's talking. He's in that student lecture hall. He sees the student drop her pen, and he slowly regains control of his muscles to get up out of his chair, bend down, pick it up, and hand it to the student. Like, why would you think James Marsh would put something like that in the movie?
Well, I think the pin kind of represents like him at his prime, due to the fact that like when that pin first dropped, he wrote this paper that was so incredible, and that his professor was just so wowed by, and all of his colleagues were like, wow, this paper's awesome and everything, and when he first his theory was first presented, and that was kind of the prime of everything. And that's when you first see the pin drop. And the second time you see the pin drop was at that meeting. And the meeting, he is not at his prime. He's in this wheelchair. He can't move. He's actually in a very difficult situation. Yes, he's still presenting these theories and things like that. He's not nearly as functional. Yes, as he was the first time the pin dropped. And I really think that like the pin, but from the first time to the second time, kind of represents how like much he's changed, I guess, in a sense.
That's really cool. My own interpretation as to why that was included, like when I first saw that in the theater, that just made me go, wow, I can't believe they did that. My interpretation was when the student dropped her pen, as opposed to him dropping it himself at the first time, and he slowly regains muscle in his body. To me, that was sort of a way to indicate, and I don't know if James Marsh was going for this, but this is the way that I took it, is that he's not that different than you and me. Yes, he has an IQ of over 300 or whatever, but he's just like you and me. He's a guy that if he sees you drop your pen, he's going to pick it up for you and say, hey, you dropped your pen. And in what I saw in Eddie's face is when he sees the pen drop, he almost has like this look of like real sadness. And then so he gets up out of his chair to pick it up, because maybe it's that idea of what you were getting to, that maybe he can't do that anymore. But it's to show that he is not that different. He is a normal person that we unfortunately have thrust this fame on him as being the smartest man who ever lived. And so I thought that was a beautiful moment, and that takes place. I had forgotten that takes place during a question where somebody asks him, I forget what the question was, but the answer he gives, where he says something like, while there's life, there's hope. And so I kind of feel like that question, that what he says there and the emotion of him picking up the pen kind of went hand in hand during that sequence.